Dr. McLeod, in an earlier video you mentioned that you had 5 ancestors who are listed on the Register of Freedmen. Could you talk about this record and what it means to you personally?
Well, it's hard to separate the personal from the social, and so I will talk a little bit also about the social implications, but let me begin with the personal. I came across the record. In fact, I was led to it. I mentioned in an earlier video, I was led to it by archivist Reginald Washington at the National Archives. In the record, yes, there are 5 of my ancestors listed, my great-great-grandmother and 4 of her children. Now, when I came across this record, I hadn't anticipated, I had no reason to tell you the truth about it. In fact, I didn't know that the record even existed. Uh, and so I hadn't anticipated that I would sort of be encountering on that day these 5 ancestors. And so when I found my eyes, looking at this page where their names were listed, it was a life-changing moment. It really was an encounter. It was an encounter with the past. It was, as so much of genealogical work is, an instance of seeing the existence of one's own blood relatives, one's own family members, remembered, listed in the record. And so I have to tell you, if you haven't had that sort of experience, it just sort of gives you pause. Another thing that I'd like to add to that is that prior to finding this record, I knew very little, nothing, next to nothing about this great-great-grandmother. The only time I had seen her name, and I had only seen her first name listed, is on the death certificate of one of her children, her, in fact, youngest child. And the family had forgotten her name. She's only, a couple of generations removed, and yet her name had already been lost to history. So what it means to me personally is that it brings the family back together. It's only been 2 years, and yet now we can talk about grandmother Nancy. This record really does give one a sense of what that transition to freedom was like. I have since done research on the record, and I understand that this is Camp Shiloh and that it was in Memphis, and that African Americans came out of Alabama and out of several counties in Mississippi and Arkansas and several other areas, even some out of Kentucky and other parts of Tennessee, into Memphis and into this camp. Some had also spent time in other camps. And so by studying contraband camps in general and by studying this camp in particular, these other, again, social aspects beyond, implications beyond my own family history. We get to see in more realistic terms what this transition to freedom was like. And so we don't just talk about the Emancipation Proclamation in a sort of vague and very abstract way. But once we get these records in our hands, even in digital form, the whole notion of achieving freedom takes on a whole new meaning. So it has a personal meaning, but it also has a social meaning, and this is why I'm working so hard to digitize these records and make them available to the public.
Thank you.
You're welcome.